Hello, my name is Jonathan Hocker, and today we will be doing a PESTLE analysis of Duke Energy. This presentation will give an overview of Duke Energy, what a PESTLE analysis is, and then the factors of PESTLE affecting Duke Energy: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental, and then conclude with a wrap-up. Duke Energy first started as the Catawba Power Company in 1900. By the Wiley brothers, who were able to convince James Duke and Benjamin Duke to invest into Southern Power Company in 1905. The group formed the Watery Power Company in 1917, which later became Duke Power in 1924. The aforementioned companies would merge into Duke Power by the end of the decade. After World War II, there was an economic boom for electricity, and nuclear energy was being explored as the safe, clean, and economical alternative to what was being used. This would continue into the 1990s when natural gas became the front runner for energy. As a result, Duke Power would merge with Pan Energy in 1997 to officially become Duke Energy. Since then, Duke Energy would continue to grow and become the largest electrical utility in the United States in 2012. The current focus of the company is in new technology and renewable energy resources. In the modern day, the company is interested in seeing where it stands in its current market, so as a result, a PESTLE analysis will be done. A PESTLE analysis is a fundamental tool of market planning and strategizing that must be carried out to comprehend market trends and the systematic risk involved. A PESTLE analysis includes 6 categories: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. Each of these categories will have 3 factors looked at. The impact of these factors on the company will be taken into account along with the type of threat they hold, with 0 being positive for the company and then 1 through 10 being negative on the company. The first political factor being looked at is state and national regulations. Duke Energy must abide by any state or national laws concerning topics such as taxes or tariffs. The company also must be aware of competition regulations and any changes in laws if potential corruption occurs if politicians get involved. This factor can impact the company instantly or go on for a long time. The threat of this factor is being ranked as a 6 out of 10, but the company can continue to do what they're doing in order to abide by the laws and not get into any issues. The second political factor is change in leadership. In just a few months, in November 2020, the United States will be having the upcoming presidential election. Donald Trump will be up for his second term, going up against whoever the Democratic representative is. Historically, North Carolina, where the headquarters of Duke Energy is, has predominantly been a Republican state, where the state has voted Republican in 10 of the last 12 elections. Whether the president ends up being a Republican or a Democrat, it can impact the business as a whole. However, the chance of something drastic changing that will impact the company greatly is very low, so the threat for this is being ranked 3 out of 10. Final political factor being looked at is Energy Justice North Carolina. This is a coalition formed with the goal to weaken Duke Energy's territory control in North Carolina. As of now, 90% of North Carolina's population uses Duke Energy. This coalition plans to have more competition in North Carolina for electricity options. If this coalition succeeds, Duke Energy can slowly see their customers switching providers over time, and this is a huge threat, being ranked in at 8 out of 10. Energy Justice North Carolina was initially created due to the coalition thinking that Duke Energy wasn't as focused on renewable energy, so this threat can go from an 8 out of 10 to something lower if the company really focuses on renewable energy and trying to be a part of that. Moving over to the economic factors, the first factor being looked at is unemployment. As of this presentation, unemployment has risen due to the global pandemic occurring. Data from June 6, 2020 says that the unemployment rate is at 13.3%. Due to this increased unemployment from the pandemic, Duke Energy has committed to not disconnect any of their customers while this is going on. Due to the special circumstances of unemployment being on the rise due to a global pandemic, this is not a large threat to the company. These are special circumstances where all communities need to work together and Duke Energy must stay committed to their customers at this time. The next economic factor is disposable income. Data shows that incomes have been growing over time, but Americans are spending less. Since nowadays electricity is virtually an essential, Duke Energy isn't necessarily affected as a whole by this. However, due to this trend, impact can be seen in the stock market and investments in the company. As a result, it's still a low threat, but it is possible, and it has an impact of mid to long term on the company. The next economic factor being looked at is service inflation rate. Duke Energy's subdivisions have been seeking to increase monthly bills for customers, particularly in Indiana and North Carolina. The impact may not be felt right away, but this has a mid to long-term impact if customers end up switching providers. This is even more so if the Energy Justice North Carolina coalition takes effect and North Carolina residents have more options. The threat level for this is mid-range, and the company really needs to consider when they want to increase rates and why. Moving on to social factors, public health is a big concern. As previously mentioned, COVID-19 is a global pandemic that has been happening for most of 2020. The 7 states that Duke Energy occupies, there are approximately 219,000 cases with almost 10,000 deaths. This global pandemic is a huge threat to the public health of employees and citizens. There is no end in sight for this pandemic, and it could even get worse. The company must continue to stay as safe as possible and follow CDC guidelines and help their customers where they can. On a more positive note, the next social factor is education level. Roughly 1/3 of adults have a 4-year degree, the highest ever in United States history. The rise in education level means increased competitiveness for jobs that allows Duke Energy to hire those with the right talents and skills. This is only positive for the company as they are able to bring on board many talented individuals to help the company grow and innovate. The education level trend should only continue to go upwards, so this will be great for the company in the future. The next social factor is protests and crime. National protests have been occurring following the murder of George Floyd in Minnesota. As a result, major protests in all state Duke Energy occupies has occurred, along with the National Guard being activated in all states that the company occupies except for South Carolina. The impact of this on the company as a whole is unknown, as this could be something that is short-lived or makes a huge impact and is seen for the foreseeable future. Currently, the threat level is set at a 4 out of 10. However, the company has yet to make a public statement on the matter. Although it has replied to a comment from Business Insider, the company has yet to address all of its customers as a whole and the state of North Carolina and the other states that it occupies. This threat could potentially increase if the company comes out with a stance that the general public does not stand with. This could result in losing customers or riots or destruction of property. Moving on to technological factors, let's talk about the innovations for smart grid. The smart grid allows for quicker recognition, faster response, and minimization of affected customers for power outages. It also allows for expansion of services offered to customers, so that way customers are allowed to customize and individualize their plans in the way they see fit. The innovations for the smart grid will affect the company in the long run, and it's only going to be positive. The company must continue to invest in smart grid, especially along with the other smart technologies. It also includes our second factor, which is development for renewable energy. The company plans to double their energy portfolio by the end of 2025, going from 8,000 megawatts to 16,000 megawatts. The company must continue to invest in the technology used for these renewable energy solutions, so that way it can keep up with competitors who may be investing more into renewable energy development and innovation, which could potentially take customers away. Due to that, the threat is set out of 1 out of 10, but overall it's very positive for the company and will impact them in the long run for the goals that they want to reach. The last technological factor is the smaller smart technologies such as line sensors, intelligent substations, and communication devices. The development and implementation of these smart technologies, along with the smart meter that is used in customer homes, is necessary for Duke Energy to keep up with other competitors on the digital age. Like the other technological factors, this is only going to be positive for Duke Energy and will help them as they continue towards the renewable energy goals for the future. Legal factors that Duke Energy must consider include general employment laws. This includes anything such as labor laws, safety laws, and the company must also consider the differences in laws between the various states that it occupies. Not all the laws will be the same state by state. This has a low threat but can impact the company long term if something were to happen and a lawsuit were to occur. Duke Energy just needs to continue what they're doing and adhere to the general employment laws and always make sure that they're up to date. While the employment laws may be good, Duke Energy needs to consider the factors of the environmental lawsuits that it has been in recently. Environmental Protect Agency lawsuits was from a violation of the Clean Air Act, and had Duke Energy spend approximately $85 million to reduce air pollution. Violation also saw Duke Energy rely more on natural gas, which is actually a potentially larger threat to the environment than what they originally were in violation of. Natural gas requires the use of fracking, which is major water and air pollution that occurs during the process. As a result, the threat level for this is very high and can impact the company's reputation in the future. The company may consider shifting more towards renewable energy now rather than in the future. The final legal factor is the coal ash spill that occurred in 2014 in the Dan River in North Carolina. This spill had 39,000 tons of ash lead into the river, and as a result, 27 million gallons of ash pond water was sent into North Carolina and Virginia. The company agreed to a $7 million settlement and had to do excavation of the ash from the ponds that were affected. Energy has taken a blow to its reputation as a result of this, and it's definitely going to impact them in the short-term future. If the company continues to be reckless and careless about the environment, its reputation can nosedive. Speaking of the environment, the company must really consider natural disasters and intense weather. All states that Duke Energy occupies deal with some sort of weather condition, primarily hurricanes, severe thunderstorms, and tornadoes, but also blizzards, earthquakes, and wildfires. Natural disasters are always in effect and will be around for the long term. As a result, this is the highest level of threat possible, and the company must always be prepared. There must always be plans of action for each natural disaster, and the company must be quick to respond when they happen. The company must also consider environmental regulations such as the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and coal combustion residuals. The company has been in violation of some of these acts in the recent past, so it must really make sure that it's following EPA regulations. The threat of this is high, as the company has been known to violate some of these and can really affect the company's reputation in the future. Companies should make sure that it's always following guidelines and doing things the proper way. The company can do so by taking into account the last environmental factor, a push for clean energy. Many U.S. citizens see renewable energy as the energy of the future, and Duke Energy has been behind on the trend. The projection for the 2030 renewable energy portfolio for Duke Energy, which is at 10%, lags behind what the U.S. average is as of 2017 at 17%. The threat for this is potentially very high if the company does not get behind the renewable energy trend and keep up with competitors. Although the company wants to have net zero carbon emissions by 2050, if its renewable energy portfolio is very lacking compared to others, the reputation of the company can dwindle. As shown, there are many factors that affect a company, whether it be positive or negative. The 6 categories looked at allows for analysis to see where the company is at. And there are positive factors for Duke Energy, but there is also many concerning factors that the company needs to keep in mind and strategize for. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your